Right. So everyone, welcome to the session, Crash Course to the Immune System with myself, Levi. So what I'm going to do is, without just going to get straight into the session, I'm going to share my screen and I've prepared a PowerPoint which everyone can follow along with. And hopefully it's going to be a cool time. How it's going to work is, first I'll ask, can we see screens? Can I get a thumbs up if you can see my screen? Okay, fantastic. So I'm going to start with this presentation.
I I
And then
lost you.
can you hear me now, Gloria?
I hear you, but I don't see you anymore. I
Yes,
see
so
you.
you should see my screen.
I see you up there. Okay.
Okay, great. Then we're all good to go. So I'm going to go ahead and take you through this slideshow, which should give you a good idea of the immune system. Now, I've prepared this for all levels. So if at any point you feel like, whoa, these words are a bit too much, I always say, take what you can, leave the rest, because there are going to be a few amazing. At the end of the session, I just want you to feel like I've learned something new. I didn't remember everything, but man, the human body is an amazing thing. Also, in the chat section, I have posted a few optional questions. These questions are in the chat box, so you can refer to them throughout the session. They are going to look really like her right now, and that's the point. After the session, the goal is, if you take these, to be able to answer these. So if it all looks like gibberish right now, that's totally fine. In a few, by the end, it should be all good. Cool. So first, we're going to ask the question, what is the immune system? So what exactly, when we, let me just see, when we talk about the immune system, what is that? Simply put, it's the network of organs, glands, tissues, all the stuff in your body that defends you against the nasties. So the bacteria, viruses, toxins, anything which causes a disease or ill health. A name, one word for anything that causes ill health is pathogen. So there's a number of different ways that your body defends itself. But before we get into all the nitty gritty small things, let's have a look at some of the obvious ways your body defends yourself, things that you can see. First one is going to be hair. So if you have a look at the nasal cavities, your eyelashes, even the hair on your head protects you from direct sunlight. Imagine you had like a bald scalp walking in African sun, or Arizona sun, Texas sun, not cool. Then we also have feces and spew, aka just poop and vomit. If you need poop, we do every day to get rid of things that the body doesn't need. And usually it's quite immediate response. If you've eaten something off, then you'll just bring it right back up. And urine that excretes, especially toxins. We also have a couple of chemical defenses. These are things where substances, so actual, usually liquids, that defend your body. Few ones are tears, sweat, and saliva. They contain an enzyme. An enzyme is a protein called lysozyme, which actually kills bacteria or lots of bacteria. So that's cool. We also have stomach acid. And now stomach acid is actually so strong that it can melt metal. So just think of this. You have something in your stomach right now that is actually so strong that it can melt metal. Your body's doing some pretty amazing things to keep you safe from that acid, but we're going to keep that for another class, shall we? For now, let's just make a note that physical and chemical responses are part of a system or a branch of the immune system called innate immunity. So innate immunity, that means born with. This is the immune system you are born with, or the part of your immune system, the cells you're born with. They are kind of like the first responders, the paramedics to the scene. They're very general. They're kind of equipped for everything, but not the fine details. So, for example, if someone had to have a stroke, ooh, there wouldn't be a stroke specialist on this team. They would only get to that later. There are many, 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 many kinds of cells on this innate immunity team. So let's actually introduce ourselves to a few of them. Now, at this stage, you might look at this and be like, oh my word, too much science, tapping out. But take heart. You can take as much or as little from this as you need. And these are just 4 cells that I'm going to give you a little bit more detail on. This one over here is a mast cell. Just take note of one thing of each. Over here, they have little balls on them. I'm going to call these little micro grenades. You'll see why later. This is a macrophage. It's the biggest white blood immune cell you have. This is a dendritic cell. It's a communicator. And a neutrophil. It looks like it's just eating that thing up, and that's pretty much what it does. It just eats. Okay, now on this page, you'll see we have a few cartoons, and my friend Carter Snetlogger, big shout out to her, she actually drew these functional diagrams. So these are actually cells. This one over here is the mast cell. And the mast cell, this one, I know we said that they're all kind of general. True. However, each of these general cells are kind of generalized for a specific thing. So stay with me here, guys. This over here, you can see it's a little worm thing. So if you think of worms in your stomach, big bugs like that, that is what the mast cell is going to be attacking. You also see here that it has all of these little kind of looks like rain that's going around it. All of these little dots and things. Those are histamines. Perhaps you've heard of antihistamines, the kind of type of medicine you take. So these histamines respond to allergens, so allergies. It's a natural chemical released by your immune system. However, when your immune system releases too much histamine, then too much inflammation and the body kind of overreacts and causes symptoms like or coughing or like on a hectic scale. And you actually need to use antihistamines to combat that. The next cell next to it is called a dendritic cell. You'll see that it's represented as a chef. It's kind of got platters in its hand, and it's also got a little pathogen. It's like that it's eating in its mouth, because what this thing does, it kind of engulfs things, and then it will take those things that it's engulfed and present them on a kind of a platter thing to other immune cells. You'll see here in these corners are other immune cells, and we'll get to those later in the slideshow. So dendritic cell, this eats things and it shows it to other cells to kind of call them to the party, to call them to, hey, here's pathogens here, we're going to get rid of them. A macrophage. Remember, macro means big, phage means to eat. So this is a big eater. You can see it's just eating everything, everywhere. A note here that although we've kind of drawn mouths in here, you can see that it also has lots of mini arms. And so cells don't actually have mouths, but they do have these little arm extensions that then bring in the pathogens. As you can see, there's a little bacteria like, don't eat me, but it's already been eaten. And this one also communicates to other cells, as you can see there by that little dead pathogen guy. Finally, we have neutrophils. Neutrophils, you see these little speed lines here, like pew, pew, pew. That's because they move. That's because they are the first ones on the scene of an infection. Not because they're particularly fast at, but actually because they're just found everywhere. Not all of these immune cells are found everywhere in the body, but neutrophils are pretty much everywhere. So they just are there already. If you cut your hand or your arm or something, neutrophils going to be there and take over the job. Cool. Before we go any further, we're going to take a pit stop, pause, breath, and break, and get some cellular definitions straight, guys. Where exactly are these immune cells? They are, first of all, blood cells. All immune cells are blood cells. They are a specific group of blood cells called white blood cells, because literally, if you had to look at them under a telescope, they would be whiter than the other cells. Another group we have is called red blood cells. They just carry oxygen around the body. And then platelets. They help with blood clotting, which usually if you're like, oh no, blood clots, bad thing, but if your blood didn't clot at all, we would literally just be fountains bleeding all the time. Not cool. So we need all of these cells, platelets, red blood cells, and white blood cells, for basically all of your immune cells. Okay, we are speeding off to the next part, the next branch or section of the whole immune system. It is called the acquired immune system. Now, these are the specialists. These are our cardiologists. These are our dermatologists. the cells that are specialized to respond to any types of pathogens. You'll see a few different names. I'm not going to mention them now, as we'll mention them again. However, if you think, oh, these are cool sciencey looking images, I'm just letting you know that these were taken with a scanning electron microscope, or SEM. So if ever you on Google and you'll be like, I want to look at cool things inside my body, look for scanning or just type in SEM microscopes. You can ask me questions on that later if you want. Okay, some well-known acquired immune cells. The first one over here is a T killer cell. You can see this is a ninja. It's got its swords. It's ready for action. Then we have a T helper cell. This one is kind of like a messenger. You can see it interacts with other cells as well, and it spreads messages. Finally, we have B cells. There are actually two different subgroups of B cells, and it's kind of represented by the two heads of this. They two heads, but if you have a look, it's also two eyes. My friend's a brilliant artist, isn't she? Anyways, so B cells, I'll start from the functions of the B cells and then work back. B cells are responsible for creating memory of cells. Memory means of pathogens, excuse me. Memory of pathogens means that when a body encounters something new that it's never seen before, it's going to almost like you have memory on a computer, you can store something on it. It's actually, or even your brain where it stores memories. It's going to store this memory of that pathogen so that the next time your body encounters it, it's ready and able a way to respond to it quickly and more effectively. Next, you'll see the other head has these things that look almost like Y-shaped things, these little Y-shaped things over here. Those are called antibodies. Antibodies, these are multi-purpose immune system proteins, which we will get to in a bit. But basically, antibodies, these are responsible for neutralizing pathogens and also calling other immune cells to the party to eat or get rid of the pathogens. Okay, so those are B cells. The plasma cells, which create memory, and then B plasma cells are the ones that create antibodies, and then B memory cells create memory. So memory creates memory, plasma creates antibodies. Next, we have our T helper cells. T helper cells, they're also called CD4 cells, and they are responsible for calling other immune cells to respond to the immune system. These guys are like super important. If you're thinking of news reporters, or anyone with influence, these are like the influencers. So if you think of a massive influencer, for example, a president, if a president says something, the rest of the country is going to follow. So when the T messenger cell says something, the rest of the immune system is going to be like, hey, we got to get on board with this. So they are super important. And now, fun fact, in HIV/AIDS, the CD4 cells, the T helper cells, are the cells which the HIV virus attacks. So when that develops into acquired immunodeficiency syndrome, that is the cell that's being affected. And that's why people with AIDS have such weakened immune systems. It weakens the immune system so much that they actually get something called acquired immunodeficiency syndrome. That's AIDS, where the immune system is so weak, all the T cells are so destroyed that it can't respond properly. Okay, so T killer cells are final cell on this page, and they are literally responsible for killing cells that are doomed. Doomed as in like they have no other options, there's no way forward for them, they are doomed. In other words, if you think of a few examples, we have cancerous cells. So cells that are just about to die and have no other option, they are gonna kind of give a little message that says, help, help. And then the T killer is like, on my way. And then it just kills the cell. Another example of cells which are doomed are virus-infected cells. And we are going to get, seeing as we're in the middle of a viral pandemic, towards the end of the lesson, we'll get into a bit more of how T killer cells respond to viruses. Okay, And so this picture image over here just shows you a close-up of antibodies. They're Y-shaped proteins because they are pretty important for immunology. And I'll again get to that at the end. Or if you have any more questions on antibodies, you can ask me those at the end as well. Cool, so quick summary. The innate immune cells, they are the first responders. They are common, they have a very generalized response. And also they are usually responding within a few hours to immune activity. Okay, quick summary of the acquired immune system. They are the specialists. So they are like the cardiologists, the specialists who come to deal with the nitty-gritty details to solve things. They usually respond within 1 to 2 weeks of the infection. So you can see they take a lot longer than a few hours, but their response is like up top. Also, they are involved in memory, so it makes it easier to respond quicker and more effectively to pathogens once you've encountered them already. Okay, so that's a lot of stuff working all apart. All good, cool cells, okay. But how do all these cells work together? You see, this depends on the type of pathogen. And seeing as we are now in the middle of okay, that's hello Zoom, thank you. So we got 10 minutes left over here. I don't know what happened over there, which I will definitely finish in. And if we don't get the Q&A in, I'll just open up another meeting. Anyways, so how do all these cells work together? It depends on the type of pathogen, basically. And now, as I mentioned, we have an enemy attack, and it's a virus. How do viruses work? This is a little diagram over here, which shows you how viruses actually work. The first step is you'll notice, and whenever you've seen COVID-19 things, you'll see these little spiky looking things on around the virus, or they look almost like golf ball holders in this image. These are called spikes, and they will trick the cell receptors to actually let a virus into the cell. So every single human cell has things called receptors on its membrane, which allows things into the cell. And if it doesn't have the right component to link with it, it won't allow it in. So this spike tricks the body cell to think that it's something safe, and it infiltrates the cell. It invades. Oh no. The virus then hijacks your cell, uses your cell's machinery to replicate itself. We then have more and more replication until boom, your cell literally bursts open and releases the viruses, the replicated viruses, to infect more cells. So, virus tricks your cell to let it in. Then it hijacks your cell's machinery to replicate itself. And then it replicates more and more and more until there's so many viruses that they literally like boom out of your cell and go into the rest of your body. But why? Like, why do viruses need to infect us? Like, couldn't they just do their own thing and leave us alone, you know? Like, huh? And short answer is nope. The viruses need our complex gene replication machinery stuff. Don't worry about that image. It's all basically to show you that, hey, this is a human replication DNA, and this is human DNA replicating. And this virus is so small. It's literally nanometers. This is 10 to the minus 9, like 0.009 zeros, 9, 1, whatever, small. So it's super small, and it doesn't have the components it needs. So it hijacks yours so that it can continue to live, so it can continue to exist. If you don't exist, viruses don't exist. Okay, so another pit stop, a little pause, a little break to get some definitions straight. And these have to do with size. If you have a look over here in that little circle, you'll see the size of a coronavirus. This is about the size of pollen compared to a red blood cell, compared to a fungus, spore, bacteria, and virus. This is, okay, drawn so you can actually see it. But if you know anything about science, this is micrometers, super small things. This is 0.1 micrometers. This is over here is a human hair. It's got a 60 micrometer diameter. So right around the whole human hair is about 60 micrometers. And then if you look at the virus, it's less than 1 micrometer. That is how small a virus is. Just to give you scale. And remember, there are millions and millions and millions of them just infecting one cell. And there are millions and millions and millions of them in the human body. So it gets pretty hectic in there. Next, your immune system is going to fight back. Yes, your viruses need you, but your immune system is equipped to get to the bottom of things. This over here is the structure of the COVID-19 virus. It's a very typical virus. So although we don't know very much about it in terms of the very nitty-gritty details, there's no cures or anything like that for it yet, or there's no cure for any virus, more on that later. But there's no effective treatments for it yet. We know a few things about it that we can work with. It's got viral genes. It's got these spike proteins. Remember those things that I mentioned to trick the human cells to let it in with? And it's also got a lipid membrane, aka a viral barrier. This is like that cell membrane that you have. It's made of fats. Lipids means fats. So it's got genes, it's got that spike proteins, and it's got this membrane made of fat. That means your immune system can fight back. Again, we're back to our drawings. Notice the macrophage, neutrophils, dendritic cells, all attacking this little virus guy over here. He's in trouble. And these are all, remember, innate cells, and they respond within hours. But over time, you'll have an adaptive response. And this is within 1 to 2 weeks. No chance the virus to survive with all of these guys around. Whoops, sorry. Okay. So now I've got a few questions, and I'll give you a few seconds to just ponder them. Would your body have any memory of a virus it has never seen before? Can you remember the face of someone you've never seen? In other words, if B cells are create antibodies based on memory, would you have any antibodies to combat this virus? Now remember, antibodies are the super multipurpose proteins that help your immune system a lot to combat pathogens. Lastly, if a big part of your immune system relies on recognition and memory of a pathogen to do its job well, can your immune system do its job well if it doesn't recognize or remember a virus? Short answer is nope, nope, and nope. And guys, that is exactly why COVID-19 is so dangerous. Your immune system has no memory of COVID-19. It's never seen it before. That means the immune response is going to be slower and weaker. And if your immune system is already weak, for example, if you're already in hospital, or you're a bit elderly, or if you're under a lot of stress, like if you're a health worker working 24-hour shifts, then you're also at greater risk. Essential workers are also at risk, so grocery store workers, because they have greater exposure to the virus. This means they are more likely to encounter it from someone else. However, everyone is at risk of getting it. And if you have a look over here, this guy over here, that's Boris Johnson. He's the Prime Minister of Great Britain. And he was like, at the beginning of the COVID crisis, he was like, virus, it's nothing, just and he was very nonchalant. And do you know what happened to him? He landed up in ICU with COVID-19. And now he is very much like, we got to increase the lockdown. Stay at home, guys. This thing sucks. Because, I mean, he got it himself. Now he knows the feels. So, guys, don't be Boris Johnson. Stay at home. Okay, so summary of viruses. Viruses need us to replicate. That's why they attack us. Viruses are like, oh, we want ourselves to make ourselves. So they attack. However, our immune systems are equipped to fight back. Another part of the summary. COVID-19 is unfamiliar to our immune system. That means our immune response is slower and weaker. So even if you're pretty healthy, your immune system's still new to it. And you could, besides, even if you are young, fit, and active, you might pass it on to someone who passes it on to someone who's at risk. And that's not going to go well. You could land up on a ventilator. So guys, again, stay home if you can. Okay, with that said, that brings us to the very end of the crash course part of the session. And I just want to give a quick shout out, special thanks to Dr. Drew Roll. He was my immunology and microbiology professor at North Park University in Chicago. And then to Carter Snetlager, who did all of the, or most of the artworks of the cells for me. And then finally to you, everyone who's participating in our meeting today. So it's time for Q&A. I'll give you a few minutes to think of some questions and some answers. And seeing as we only have a couple minutes left to the Zoom session, let me just get my face back on board. So again, thank you so much to everyone who's participated.